Hotep.
Blessed love, give thanks. We welcome everybody to this gathering. We give honors and praise to our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. We give honors and praise to the Creator in whatever name you choose to bestow upon the Creator. And we're going to get straight into reasoning and dialogue that was stemmed off of why. So we give thanks for all the Moors. We give thanks for all the other groups in the community who have been working towards trying to come together with a solution. Now, the purpose of us gathering here today is to speak on the solution. So, why? This is why we're here to reason. This is the basis of our gathering. And if anybody has read the paper, Friday, November the 26th, year 2010, the Toronto Sun. If you don't have it, you can even go online, torontosun.com, and they have an archive of the articles that were in this paper. So, at the same time, there are other people here. We want you to know that this is an open dialogue. No progression can happen if people just speak. It has to be a reasoning. Therefore, solutions can come and then we can act on the solutions we come up with together. So we're here to bring our perspective to the forefront. We are active and we like to communicate with other active individuals because we know that we are of the same spirit and we're of the same movement. So, we give thanks for the Moorish Divine and National Movement, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Moorish Science Temple of America. Subordinate Temple number 5 here in Canaanland. I'd like to turn, my name is Adisa Hannibal. I'd like to turn your attention over to my Grand Sheikh, Kudra Abdul.
Peace, everybody.
Peace or strength.
Again, when just by show of hands or vocal expression, how much people heard about Noble Drew Ali before? In here. So, how much people heard about Barack Obama? How much people heard about Nas? How much people heard about Harriet Tubman, Oprah Winfrey? Tina Turner.
I too.
Garth Brooks. So there's a lot of people in many different avenues that we know. Like off the top of our head, you could ask a youth man out there about some basketball player and he's going to tell him what school he got drafted from, how old he is, when his birthday is, right? And all these things that have nothing to do with that individual person, right? So in doing that, it's to just show that nobody knows about this person. They know about everybody else, but they don't know about this one person who was born in 1886 and was presenting a certain level of information that common people today would call like conspiracy theory type of information, right? The difference with him is that he looked like every one of us in here, but he was a Cherokee. Like he was from the Cherokee tribe in America. He looked like us. Like he didn't look like what they call Indians that they show us today. And he's teaching about our history in this land of the Americas and the Caribbean before the Europeans came here and said that this is the West and Christopher Columbus and all that type of information. Piracy, right? So what we're gonna read from is a book that contains words that were spoken by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, because the reason why he's important, because he's the person that reignited the practicing of Islam in America. Like, he's the person. Like, nobody was dealing with Islam on the level that he's dealing with it, which is like the ancient way of doing it, not what we see today and call Islam.
Political thing.
Not the political thing, the actual spirituality of the
Togetherness of the movement.
Mm-hmm. Right? So there was, between 1913 and 1929 is when he did a lot of his work. And a lot of his work had to do with things just like this. Calling people together who look just like him and introducing them to a concept of knowing what their nationality is. And where the part that they play in the grand scheme of social, economic movement or activity amongst people on planet Earth, not just like in America, right?
Yeah, and this thing started way before quote-unquote slavery. Very important part, we're going to get into some of the historical stuff, but the war goes way back to, if you do some little history, the Punic Wars. Anybody hear about, let's say between 200 BCE, wars in the Mediterranean in an empire which we call Carthage. It's a part of black history they don't like to talk about a lot of times, because in actuality, our war that we're fighting, the war that we're in right now, sprung from that war. That was the beginning of a bunch of independent tribes who were fighting. They didn't want to respect the indigenous people of the land in Europe, so they got together and they said, and to add the indigenous people in the land of Europe look like you and look like Drew Ali. The point is, they came together and they went against indigenous people, and that's Rome. That's the starting of Rome that rose up within the boundaries of our empire. And that's just the tip of it. And that's when our nationality, our birthright, the connection with ourselves to our history, so that we can go on and continue and be civilized people, we can grow and share and respect everybody else. The problem is a lot of us don't know, or a lot of our people can't trace themselves further than 1492, because they were taught something that was not true. Or in fact, what it was is a lot of history was left out, and the purpose of that is keeping us in the subjugated position that we're in right now in the war. As you know, this thing, like everybody's watching all the DVDs and documentaries on the Illuminati and the corporations that have taken over. Everybody's starting to learn about Christopher Columbus and the fraud story they teach about that. What we're trying to bring into enlightenment is this whole slavery story is a story in which that they teach. So it's taught coming from the perspective of how they want you to perceive yourselves. Mm-hmm. This is what Drew Ali was clearing up in 1913. Marcus Garvey knows about all of this stuff. Marcus Garvey and him are partners. Mm-hmm. However, he is the forerunner to Drew Ali and to all this stuff that we're bringing in now. So most of us are on the Marcus Garvey level of consciousness, mm-hmm. where Drew Ali spoke of him as a forerunner. An example of a forerunner could be in the Bible, where they say John is the forerunner to Yeshua. He is not the light, but he has come to bear witness of the light. Mm-hmm. So what happens is all of our quote-unquote black power, Pan-Africanists, all of these groups have the right spirit of Marcus Garvey. However, just like Marcus Garvey, he fell short of one principle, which is connecting himself scientifically to his ancestors. That's why him operating as Marcus Garvey is not representative of his ancestors. That's why they're able to shut down the organization. But since 1913, this consciousness has been around. So everything that we're bringing to you is accessible to you. But the point is we got to study, we got to find it, and stop allowing their dictatorship to rule our studies and search and even knowledge of ourselves. Because the war has been on since the 200 BC and before that. But the actual war that we're in. And it's really important that we focus our attention on the leader of every single Pan-Africanist organization, civil rights movement group in this hemisphere. All of them stemmed from the organization and the consciousness in which Jolly brought. And then when he was assassinated, what they chose to do was, instead of dealing with the full story, they took half the story and started teaching people, and so that they're in a powerful position, right? So you're only hearing about the stuff that you commonly hear about, your black self and all this kind of stuff. But the problem with all of that stuff is, amongst ourselves, I mean, if you're saying that loosely, that's one thing. But when we're trying to stand up to the world and say, no, we are a civilized people, we deserve respect, we are the founders of this place, and you're standing up and speaking and calling yourselves things that you never were, the world looks at you funny. So the importance of Drew Ali and knowing who he is just to start. You know what I'm saying? It's vast, because what it actually is waking up something that's already in you. And that's what these leader guys have infiltrated. And instead of that universal spirit where someone's coming to teach you about yourselves or help you to learn or to know thyself so you could go on and do what you have to do. Instead, these leader guys are coming and they're telling you it goes the way that they say it goes. But all these leader guys went to Drew Ali's school. All of them have the same national identity cards that we have in our pockets right now. But they're not teaching the people this. So this is the purpose of why we're here promoting the Prophet.
Right. So this is from a book called King Alfred Plan. Right. And King Alfred Plan is like a military document from 1969. And the reason why we're presenting this, if you want this, you can get this from rvbaypublications.com. The reason why we're starting off here because we want to show how every nation is sent a prophet in order for them to correct their ways. Right? Some people had Buddha, some people had Confucius, some people had Muhammad, some people had Jesus, some people had Yahshua, some people had Asar, some people had whatever the name is. Every nation of people was sent a prophet in order to save them from their sinful ways. Right? And we, as people who are brown people, as far as our identification with when someone looks at us, right? It's clear that we're brown people. But like throughout this whole article, throughout history, there's proof that we're not identified as brown people. Because the nations of the world is broken down into nationalities. And everybody has a flag and a religion, and all of them have a prophet that was sent to them. Right? Prophet Muhammad Ali is hidden from the masses because the masses are under the King Alfred Plan. Right? The things that the masses are doing, the activity that the masses are engaging in is all part of King Alfred Plan.
So it's like a blueprint.
It's like a blueprint. King Alfred Plan is the blueprint for what we're seeing happening today. And King Alfred Plan shows, like, because again, this is from 1969, right? And it's not like some, like, secret information. Like, this is information that's accessible. Like, you go to rvbaypublications.com and get this information and research and find out that, yeah, like, this is real, right? So, this booklet contains vital excerpts from Executive Order 11490, October 19, 1969, the King Alfred Plan, the Rex 84 Plan, Concentration Camps, Executive Order number 11490 expanded, Top Secret Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, Introductory Programming Manual, Operations Research, Technical Manual, TMSW 7905.1, United States of America Incorporated. The Executive Order number 11490, the Rex 84 Plan, and Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars has been in the hands of the properly accepted individuals, calling themselves the Black Leaders. Since the early 1970s, many have spoken of them, but few have logistically broken them down and disseminated the information to their alluring public. The King Alfred Plan implicates the true motive and reason why they do not. One will take note that all people mentioned in these government plans, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, do not include a de jure national name or title. All these words are descriptive chattel brands coined by Europeans as substitute pedigree parentage names and were forced as appellations on the indigenous people of the Americas and their own discards. All people bearing these labels are referred to as it in these texts. One common thread is evident. No nationality equals no rights and no human value. Are any of the states assigned black leaders speaking of or educating their people in recourse, redress, remedy, or sovereignty? Do they instruct or do they not? That is the question. There are 12 Secretary, Department of Interior, Combined Memo, Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Central Intelligence Agency. There are 12 major minority organizations and all are familiar to the 22 million. Dossiers have been compiled on the leaders of the organizations and can be studied in Washington. The material contained in many of the dossiers and our threat to reveal that material has considerably held in check the activities of some of the leaders. Leaders who do not have such usable material in their dossiers have been approached to take government posts, mostly as ambassadors and primarily in African countries. The promise of these propositions also has materially contributed to a temporary slowdown of minority activities. However, we do not expect these slowdowns to be of long duration because there are always new and dissident elements joining these organizations with the potential power to replace the old leaders. All organizations and their leaders are under constant 24-hour surveillance. The organizations are the Black Muslims, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Congress of Racial Equality, Uru Movement, Group on Advanced Leadership, Freedom Now Party, United Black Nationalists of America, New Pan-African Movement, the National Urban League, the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. Note, at the appropriate time to be designated by the President, the leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency. Working with local public officials during the first critical hours, all other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled lists of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use the minority leaders designated by the President in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents to central and federal, and we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal King Alfred Plan in all its aspects. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. Excuse me. Attorney General. Preliminary Memo, Department of Defense. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. The greatest concentration of the minority is in the Deep South, Eastern Seaboard, and Great Lakes region, and the West Coast. So with regard to everybody who looks like us, right? Everybody who has brown skin, we would read this document and we would make assumptions that, like, these people who are implementing this are racist and they have an agenda to kill black people, and when that's not what none of this said. Like, this was clear and concise as to what they're going against. And what they're going against is the minority people. And the people who consider themselves minorities, most of the time, are just like in what the beginning saying, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites. Like, that's the scope of people that are quote unquote the minority. Anywhere you go on the planet. Right? What is the most important thing out of everything that I read? Like, there's one point in this whole thing that sums everything up. And that's just open to anybody. Just thinking back to what was read. What things stuck out.
They wanted to infiltrate the black leaderships, the different groups, and change whatever it is that we're planning to do.
Exactly. What about you, sis?
They want to stop us from achieving certain things that we want to teach each other.
Right.
Anything? Anyone?
Right. The point has to be made that there will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. So in the military document that they're preparing to implement to get rid of the minority, they're saying that the minority can put in the street a superior number of people, which means they're not a minority.
And which means when they're talking about minority, then that means they're not talking about minority in the sense of numbers.
No.
Are they?
Like how we look at
Minority meant.
right? How we look at what minority means. Like, we look at minority as, well, yo, we're the dark-skinned people are the minority.
Because we're the fewer people.
Right? Well, we're not the fewer people.
Well, not
Clearly.
Clearly. And on top of us not being the fewer people, he is bound to the continent by heritage. This is all through this thing they're mentioning the Americas. They never talk about Africa yet and saying that these people came from there. They're saying that there's these people called minorities, quote unquote, and they're bound to this continent by heritage.
So they were there before.
So they were there before.
Yeah.
So to even go back to whom all these people was misnomered, Negroes, blacks, coloreds, Latinos, Indians. It's a lot of people.
And all this leads right back into, no, this was 1969. So in 1913 now, Noble Drew Ali was doing his work. So that's before this stuff came out. Right? So between 1913 and 1969, right, there was a certain thing that was done in order to get the people to accept these minority labels. Like, something happened that caused these people to say, well, yeah, I'm going to call myself a black person, I'm going to drink from this fountain. And then I'm not going to drink from this fountain because that says white on it. And I'm not that because of my skin color. So I'm going to drink from the black one. And just like the minority thing, when they did that, they weren't talking about your skin complexion. Because it's clear that we're not black people. So what are they talking about? Or when they say colored, it's clear that we're not colored people. Like those shoes right there are colored shoes. This man's outfit is colored. Sister's sweater is colored. This scarf is colored. And everything that's identified as colored is not real. So if you're going to go drink from the colored fountain, you're saying that you're not real. Because white and black and Negro and colored and minority all have to do with a status.
For example, we all seen it happen in front of our eyes, and we never really took it as it being that the same thing we're going through right now. Situation in South Africa, apartheid. What they're practicing on us. Black, colored, they're coming in with distinctions they've created in their business, in their company. And what Grand Sheik is pointing out to is they can do that if they want. But the problem is if you don't object to it, if you agree to it, or if you go to the fountain and say, yeah, that's my fountain, that's you saying you're that. Whether you're ignorant of it or not. Whether you choose to ignore it or not, that's what you're saying. You're willingly saying that. And that's how they're looking at it. Right? So 25 to 28, 25 of 28 gun murder victims in T.O. this year have been black males. Why?
Like, why has it been black males? Like, what's the dynamic that has 25 of 28 gun murder victims in T.O. this year being black males?
And it's emphasized. 25 of 28. To go on the front page to tell you they're saying why.
And then using white on black to bring attention to the question why.
Why?
On a black background with white letters. Right? With Toronto in black, the sun in red, on a white background.
And the why is loud as if the person's frustrated and it's your issue. Why is it affecting me? Why do I have to?
Why?
And it's your issue.
Right.
So
why?
Anger and it's,
right.
This is
them talking.
They always think of the dark parts of things to make a big issue. And where the light is, they don't want to bring it out.
Right.
For they're saying black is doing all these things and still, I mean, the world is still building up half black.
Right.
Black building.
Yeah.
And black are the people who are the slave.
what's that?
You know?
You're building off of the people.
Black are the people who work. Black are the people who provide bread. But why did us go on where the killings goes? To find black. You understand me? Right. I mean, black is still the absence of confusion, and black is the color of supreme balance, but they don't address that.
Right.
So why is it there and black to just put down black? If black, you know, is so great and so beautiful, why they put it down for everything built up on black?
Right, but see, that's what
Consider that.
That's what the problem is.
So why they don't want black and they can't do without black?
Yeah, but that's what the problem is, because it's not.
You're accepting that.
It's not black.
Yeah.
You're mislabeling.
They're saying black, and then we say, yeah. Well, how come they're not gonna uphold black when black is the foundation of everything? Well, not necessarily. Black isn't really the foundation of everything, especially from a people perspective. Like there's no quote unquote black people, because we're brown people. In the sense of
whom the people whom you're talking about, we know whom you're talking about, but when you address them as black people,
The very late.
It's a contradiction.
Yeah.
It's a contradiction. One of the reasons is a lot of times we're using English words. It's English.
Yeah.
So
English.
if we're going to use an English word, okay, if you choose to, you're going to have to go and study the English definition of the word. You have to study the etymology of the word. If you're going to use it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use it, then go use another language.
Exactly.
Then you can't complain.
Exactly.
But as you brought up one point, you're still going to have to deal with the same principles
One thing
in whatever language. So what we're saying is the etymology of the English word black means pale. This is how, with us not really knowing to a detail, this is like what we're saying again, instead of being dictated the definition of something. Because we, for whatever reasons, are not looking into it for ourselves. When we start to look into things for ourselves, define things for ourselves, we start to realize, I'm using this English word to define myself. Why not use the proper one?
One thing I would like to bring to light.
Language.
For you see, if you want to solve a problem, you have to come from where the root of is, what the root of it. Understand me?
Right.
And I really sometimes feel myself so less constrained about these people who are making these great issues about black. You understand why they can't begin from where everything comes from? For I think it is poverty that commit crime.
That's right.
It is poverty that creates disagreeableness. It is poverty that creates weakness. It is poverty that creates bitterness. It is poverty that creates problem. So how can they solve other problems and they can't solve poverty then? If they doesn't want the problem, why can't they turn off war and all this ammunition and turn their attention to poverty?
They're saying
And
it's
stop
not
the
a
crime
race,
then.
it's not a race
And stop
thing.
the
It's not a
gun
color
thing.
thing.
Stop the violence
See.
thing. For I know it comes from poverty. No matter what nobody gonna tell me, say it's poverty.
This disenfranchisement, if I said the
That's
word
right.
right,
Keep us in
disenfranchisement, dethronement,
Yeah.
denationalization. It's a scientific process
Yeah, but they
that
address
puts
all-
you
they
in
address all
poverty
these
because
issues.
you're no longer able to be self-sufficient because you cut off self.
Exactly.
And you're now a corporate or fictitious entity in our situation.
So as they can address the current issue about killing,
Yeah.
but what happened to poverty? I see
Yeah,
police,
exactly.
a man fire a gunshot and police is searching for the bullet. And why can't they searching for the person who doesn't have no opportunity, has no education,
Yeah, but okay.
have no way out in life,
So
to bring them to life then?
when we think
Searching for a gunshot, that's not going to solve the problem.
Well,
Go to where the root comes from.
Agreed.
when we think about them, right?
Yeah.
Majority of crimes, when do they happen? Day or nighttime?
Alright.
Day.
Huh?
Majority of crimes?
It can in the day
Oh,
and happen
man.
in the night.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I can't.
That's another topic.
Yeah, I can't
crimes in
even
the sense
see.
of crimes in the sense of like
This
on
kind
the front
of
page of the paper,
This kind of crime.
These are happening in the day too, and
right? But the essence of why it's happening, right? Nightlife stuff.
A lot of gangs.
idling,
quote-unquote gangs,
idling.
right? You know they sleep all day and wake up
And then
and
you wake up
Okay,
and
yeah.
do your work or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
hustle and do your
But
thing.
if a black guy did it, right? Like nighttime is blackness, right? Okay, so if a black guy did it, who's the suspect? They have to look for the bullet.
Right.
Because
The bullet is
you
the
can't
suspect.
you can't see a black guy in the nighttime.
if he's black.
If he's black, if that wall's black and I put something black in front of that wall, are you gonna be able to see what the difference is? Unless you like go look at it actually and say, oh yeah, well that's a black table in front of the black wall.
And English language is so funny, but B-L-O-C-K and B-L-A-C-k. Think of it.
block. What do you spell? Spell it again.
B-L-O-C-K.
Block, right?
B-L-A-C-K.
Yeah.
So that we say people talking about black, we wonder what they're really dealing with, you know?
Well, okay, you see what we think black means, right? Generally, when we're talking about the darkness of stuff.
Yeah.
Science, like for example, shade, when you want to block sunlight from coming in, the lowest vibration color or on the spectrum would be the darkest, right? The most dense. The higher the color on the spectrum, the lighter or the faster it vibrates, right? So we have to understand that when you're using the word black to define yourself, historically,
it's a way of degrading yourself.
It's degrading yourself.
Right.
We didn't come up with these terms, it's clear.
Vibration.
We never in history, even according to their history, called ourselves blacks.
No.
We never had a kingdom black. For example,
It's
can we
vibration.
get into that?
Just like,
The black,
Just the
history.
Okay.
Yeah.
but for, I was gonna say, just like, just how these youths refer to each other as nigger, and that's exactly what you're getting.
Exactly the
You know,
same thing.
it's-
Exactly what's happening.
That's the vibration.
Nigger.
Yeah.
Same thing. Negro, black, and colors. These are titles that delude to slavery.
And again, when these things happen, these implications took place, right? I mean, attention is drawn onto them. But then again, I mean, they say it is from the law that brings the greatest benefit to mankind. So the honor and interest of everyone depend upon the wisdom of the law. While humiliation, loss of rights, iniquity, and shame arise from their absence or insufficiency. So we know that the law, whether it reward or punishes, it must apply to everyone without exception.
Without exception.
And we know that Parliament have the right to legislate for the benefit and the welfare of all people.
Right.
So why are they going down there and leaving out Parliament?
Right. You made a great point. You said it's applied to everyone.
Right.
A black, Negro, and a colored is an adjective.
Exactly.
It's not a noun. A noun defines a person.
Right.
Right, don't forget.
An adjective is a describing, this is blue, this is black, this is gray, this is green.
Right.
This
Very
is
good
Negro,
Actually,
this is colored.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's an adjective.
It's an adjective.
Of something.
A description of something. Nothing, no nation with a flag in the world and with a constitution goes defined by an adjective.
Right.
Unless they are a fictitious entity.
Right. All people bearing these labels are referred to as it.
Yeah, that stood out too.
It.
Yeah, it.
What's
All people that are referred to by these titles, black, Indians, Latinos, Negro, coloreds, poor whites, Trinidadian, Jamaican, whatever they call themselves, is referred to as it.
And that information is accessible to the public.
It's like
Right.
an alien, some foreign.
Right,
Right.
and it's it.
Target.
Target.
Target. It is also merchandise.
That's right.
Goods.
It's not real.
So if I sell and buy this, right, and in the transportation of buying and selling these goods, something is to happen to it. Can anybody defend its human rights?
No.
Human rights don't apply
Okay, you're a product.
to it, because it's a it.
Yeah.
So you can hang this on a tree,
You're just like
you
a,
can throw it in a prison institution, a factory, you can do whatever you want to it. Because it's in error in the first place.
Right.
It's actually, well, and in our situation, we are clinging to the titles. So they're sitting back saying these people are now wanting to be slaves,
wow.
whether knowing it or not.
Right.
They're laughing.
And just like we were talking about earlier, ignorance is no excuse. So if you want to think that black is dealing with your ancestors from Africa, and you call yourself black, and someone doesn't challenge you for doing that, that doesn't mean that you're right.
Well, I don't know, the wisest man that I read about, King Solomon, he, in the Bible, it tells us that he get up and stand up and tell the world that he's proud to be black. He's black, but he's comely.
Right.
You understand me? And come to black, I know that our life force, our life source come from black darkness.
Right.
Darkness.
You understand me? So people who really trading up on black are people who really fighting against life itself.
No.
Black-
You're
black and darkness is
misunderstanding
two different
the
things.
context of what we're.
Oh.
Darkness and blackness.
Black
Black
that means
are two different things. Black don't mean darkness. we think it means darkness because of modern English changing of language. We use slang every day. We call each other. It's like this. It's like the word. It's like Niger. They use the word. If you look up the word Niger in a dictionary, they say it means black.
Yeah.
Right. Another way to say Niger is nigger.
So darkness.
Hold on.
That doesn't represent darkness then.
No.
No. That's why we don't use the word nigger to represent us, because that black nigger means black in the English language.
It's a literal translation.
Literal. That's why they call it the Niger River, because it's black, dark water. And English would say it's Niger. They didn't even say black at those days. Now they came up with this King Alfred plan.
So you ever see a blonde shirt?
A blonde?
Shirt.
No. You ever see a white person before?
That's what I'm trying to say.
No. Black and white are not
So it's
skin
kind of
colors. They're statuses.
Hey, I never
Black
see
and
a
white.
blondie car.
Right, exactly.
In South Africa. And you're right. So we're on the same page. But it's keeping things in context and just being clear on how we communicate with the world. You know what I mean? That's just it. But we know the people in whom you're talking about are us. Melanated beings, carbonated beings, chemware beings, however you want to, whichever language you want to use, but use proper terms. Right? And the whole point is it's like, this was their plan. So modern English dictionaries, this is why it's important to get an unabridged dictionary. These were English dictionaries before I think 1956 was kind of the year when they started to come up with the new dictionaries, which were not unabridged. Unabridged meaning it comes with the history of the root of the word. Meaning English is a newer language that we created still. But that's another topic. And in each unabridged dictionary, before you even get into what we think it means now, or the history of how it changed or whatever, there's brackets in before the word that explains to you the etymology of the word, which is getting into the root, where and why we started using it for it. And black, straight across the board and factually, is defined, the first definition is pale.
Give us some more.
Blank
Tell us some more about
and
it.
blank.
Tell us some more about it. Come on, man. We need to hear.
I need to get that dictionary.
Okay, so
You're right, respect.
I need that dictionary.
it's so like if you just you need a dictionary because information is at your fingertips. So you can put etymology dictionary in the Google search,
That's true, yeah.
and it'll give you an online etymology dictionary. And then you put black in there, it'll tell you that black means pale.
And then another breakdown, blank. B-L-A-C.
And black.
I mean, people wouldn't just take that from you saying black means pale, you know?
Right. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
That pale means white.
No, but we're looking at
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, mean white.
we're looking at
Right, but what
the dictionary.
but the reference we're making is
It's a confusion.
no, the English. You're using English. You can't go to an Arabic dictionary to find out. You can't go into the Rasta dictionary to find out if you're using an English word.
But pale has been represented as white today. By the pale people, they call them white.
Yeah, but
They don't call
they don't
themselves
call
white.
them you like.
They don't call themselves white. They call themselves German,
They're European,
Exactly.
European,
British,
by their
Exactly.
nation. Even the Jews, who you know are not really Jews, right? Don't say they're just Jew.
Right.
They say they're
They're
German,
German Jew.
they're Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah.
They identify what Jew.
They went through a process. That's why they're trying to create a state upon our state over there, right? And they're coming trying to create a state. Their state is built off of, just like back in the day when Rome came, a bunch of people coming from some place wanting to come together to take over the jurisdiction of the indigenous people that are already there
And conquer
and conquer them.
What do you say by picking a label